This is Zero Sum Game, Episode 4, Sides. After 2 days of medical treatment, supplies, and other assortments of preparation, Maeve, Viv, Jazz, Dean, and Nate all find themselves ready to head out to their respective cities to fulfill their respective duties agreed upon a few days prior. Jazz and Dean head to Sun City, while Viv, Nate, and Maeve head to Cersei to bust their old recruits out of prison. So, how long do you think it's been since we've been here? Jazz asks, turning to Dean, who is sitting next to her in the car. Not sure, he replies. Feels like a lifetime ago. After what had happened to Ground Zero, the four of them, Jazz, Viv, Dean, and Nate, all thought it'd be best to travel the world a bit, to not deal with what happened back home. They were all quite little at the time. Dean and Nate were both 8, Jazz was 10, and Viv was 11. And staying in a place that was so dark and lonely, it was too much for the four of them. Sun City was the first stop the four took on their way to find themselves. Almost 10 years ago, actually. The city is still as bright and amusing as when Jazz was first here. It truly gets its name from how the sun illuminates the city. Each building quite literally looks like it's been dipped in gold, just from how the sun hits it. Though this time around, there are things that she noticed she didn't when she was first here. Oh wow, all of our old hangouts are shut down, Dean notices. And he's right. As Jazz parks the car on a semi-busy street, she sees a familiar shop. Oh no, Rosie's shut down, she exclaims, with disappointment and sadness falling over her. Rosie's was an old ice cream shop that she and the rest of the crew would always go to. Rosie, the shop's namesake, would always give them as many samples as they wanted. That's so sad, Dean remarks, getting out from the passenger's side of the car. Jazz closes the door to her side of the car and follows him to the shop. I wonder what happened, Dean asks. And Jazz replies with a quiet, me too. She then clears her throat and tugs on Dean's sleeve. We should probably head out, she begins by saying, desperately wanting to change the subject and leave this place. We need to get going if we want to get more recruits. Dean nods in reply as they head to the town square a few blocks away. So, he begins, how are you doing, by the way? I mean, you and Viv. You two had a pretty big fight before the protest, and I don't know, I didn't want to say anything, but I just wanted to check in. Dean looks at Jazz with concern, but she just keeps looking straight ahead of her. We're fine, Jazz immediately responds. I don't want to get into it, honestly. And that's the truth. She and Viv have always been rocky. They're both very, very different, but she loves her nonetheless. Viv is just so stubborn sometimes. You don't have to talk about it. It's fine, Dean responds. He's always been a really understanding person. It's what she really appreciated about him. On a lighter note, he continues, easing their way into a new conversation. How's this spot for recruiting? He asks, gesturing to a spot by the fountain at Sun City's square. It looks perfect, Jazz says. And, hey, did you bring the thing? Yeah, the ones with our contact information. They're right here. Dean laughs as they continue to get closer to the fountain. Oh, also, Jazz begins, I brought the walkie-talkie. I'm sure everything's fine, but I told Nate to contact me if anything goes wrong. Dean? Dean! The walkie-talkie flares and buzzes. Jazz! Dean! They hear screaming on the other end. Something's wrong, Jazz says. Static. 911! They hear from the other end of the walkie-talkie. It's Nate. Something has gone terribly wrong. No! Nate stammers, hearing static fill their walkie-talkie. Everything has been in chaos since the breakout, and Nate doesn't know what to do. Let's hope Dean and Jazz get here before Viv does something even worse. The morning air feels nice against Maeve's skin, blowing through her hair and kissing her cheeks and nose, though a twinge of tension filled her lungs as well. She was heading to Cersei, the detention center where all the convicts go. She's only heard stories of the place, how it's as big as cities, how it holds everyone the newfound tyrant doesn't like. Outside her window, she sees scattered trees alongside patchy hills. A few squirrels and mice scurry up into trees and into bushes. The green landscape looks quite nice and reminds her of home. Home, Maeve thinks. She'd rather not think about that right now, so she decides to look down at her hands instead. Ah, Viv says. Here we are. Maeve nods intently as she continues to look down at her hands. And out of the corner of her eye, she sees the landscape turn from muddy greens to deep reds and browns as they head into the gates of Cersei. All right, Viv says. The plan is to get in and out. Nothing special. Maeve and Nate nod, grabbing their respective gear from the trunk and heading out. Everything is set, she thinks. All the noise machines are set to their respective areas and are at their highest volume. Nothing should go wrong at this point. Everything's working just as planned, Viv whispers gleefully as they lock up the doors to the major cell block. Great, Nate exclaims, a few feet from them. The trio had gotten into this block by playing random sounds via speakers that were set up strategically around the base. Now that they were in, the only thing that they needed to do now was to find their fellow activists. Viv, what are you doing? This wasn't part of the plan, they shout. Viv is standing at the top of the balcony at this point, looking down at all the open cells. We were only planning on opening the cells of our people, Nate sneers. Oh, come on, Viv says, smirking. Her voice echoes through the chaos of the people below her. You know that this is exactly what we needed. So, Viv starts, letting her voice carry. Her voice doesn't seem to be catching the ears of the people below her. Interesting. Let's try this again, she calculates, taking the remote to all the speakers out of her pocket and setting the one next to her to its highest volume. A high-pitched screech blares through the speakers, and everyone, including Maeve and Nate, put their hands over their ears in pain. Much better, Viv says, smiling. Now, you all may be wondering why my associates and I have let you out. The prisoners begin to settle, looking up at her. Well, it's because we need your help. As some of you know, we are planning on staging a few protests, and as my wonderful friend over here pointed out to me, Viv explains, pointing to Maeve, we need more manpower. So, you have a decision to make. Viv pauses for a moment, basking in the power that she has over the people below her. You can either join our fight to take over the planet, or, well, Viv smiles. We can just open the doors. She gestures to the iron doors opposite to where she's standing, where all they can hear are the sounds of the guards banging and yelling on the other side. We have to go. Jazz's breathing becomes shallow as she rushes to the car. Something's gone terribly wrong. Now! As Jazz and Dean speed over to Cersei, Viv is rounding up the last of her new recruits, with Maeve following her like a lapdog. Nate, feeling like something is off, stays behind and sneaks to the gates of Cersei, anxiously waiting for the others to arrive. When she and Dean arrive, everything feels so still. Nate told Jazz to meet them at a discreet spot where Viv couldn't find them. She still couldn't believe it. Why is Viv gathering more people than they need? That's when Jazz sees them. Nate, appearing from the shadows. They wave for Jazz and Dean to drive over, and as soon as she gets out, Nate runs to her. I don't know what's going on with Viv, they say. What do you mean? Dean asks, walking out from the other side of the car. She's off, somehow. Not herself, Nate continues. You should have seen it, the way that she was talking to them. It sounded tyrannical, crazy almost. It was like she enjoyed holding them, or us, hostage. They look down, uncomfortable and clearly in shock. I don't know. I don't want to. It's okay, Jazz says, pulling them into a hug. It's okay. We'll get through this. Just tell us what happened. Okay, Viv, what's the plan? She asks, now standing on the balcony with Viv. Down below, the last of the guards are being tied up by the inmates. She can see the pure joy on their faces by doing so. As I said, protests, Viv says, though Maeve can feel that there's more to this that she's not telling her. I know I said we needed more people, but we don't need this many. The number of people in this block is easily over a few hundred. Oh, come on. You can trust me by now, right? I may be new to all of this, but if you didn't trust me, you wouldn't have been so okay with me coming along. That is true, Viv ponders. Maeve can feel the hesitation in her voice. All right, she says after a moment. I'll tell you, so long as you stay by my side throughout all of this. My plan, that is. Yeah, of course. That's why I'm here, aren't I? Viv smiles, smirks, almost like she was about to reveal her innermost secrets to Maeve. You'll be the first to know my plans. Outside of Nate, of course. Nate knows? Maeve asks, looking around. They're gone. Speaking of, where's Nate? Don't worry, Maeve. This was always a part of the plan. Viv, come out here now, Jazz yells, her voice barely reaching past the screeching from inside the gates. Take me inside, Nate. Take me inside. Take me inside. I need to see her. She's gone mad. No, I won't. You're going to kill her if I do that. And I don't want you to do something you'll regret. Tears burn down Jazz's cheeks. How could she be thinking about doing this? Jazz thinks. I have to talk to her. I have to. Please, Jazz pleads, turning to Nate, who at this point is holding her back. Please let me go talk to her. I need to know if this is something she really wants to do. If she wants to go down this path, She heaves. This is so destructive. Please, Jazz whispers one last time, kneeling. Nate finally gives in, letting her go and gesturing inside. I'll take you to her, but I'm warning you, at this point, I think her mind is pretty made up. Viv. Now, that's a voice I was waiting for, she thinks. Viv turns from Maeve to the double doors across from her. Ah, what took you so long? Traffic on your way over? Come down here now, Jazz commands. Whoa, Viv says in surprise. I've never seen this side of you before, Jazz. I'm impressed, she says, taking a few steps down from her balcony, eyeing Jazz carefully. Well, through everything, I've never been quite this upset before, she says bluntly. Now that is true, Viv thinks. I mean, we did have our fights, but Jazz never really looked this hurt before. Oh, why the long face, dear? She says as she gets to the bottom step. Oh, come on. Was it something that I did? Viv steps forward, closer to Jazz, opening her arms up and resting them on either of Jazz's shoulders. Her eyes look red, probably from crying, and her arms are crossed. For some reason, she won't look at her. What do you think? Jazz's sarcasm thickens. Oh, so Nate told you my plan, didn't they? Viv remarks, eyeing Nate over Jazz's shoulders. You know, I did account for that. I didn't really think that they'd be that loyal, since, you know, the whole planetary destruction thing. Viv laughs, smiling at Nate. They look uncomfortable, but keep eye contact. That's when Jazz pulls away. What you're doing is destructive and dangerous, Viv. I can't support it. And you can support the leader of this world with what she's done? Viv asks. What she has done to us? She leans forward, putting her hand on Jazz's cheek, trying to coax her into staying. As much as she knew Jazz would disapprove, she still hoped for something. Maybe a sign that she would mean enough to Jazz for her to stick by her. Maybe. It's an eye for an eye, JJ. The exact thing we've been saying all these years. Don't call me JJ, Jazz demands, fury fuming from her. You don't get to call me that anymore. You lost that right as soon as you decided you wanted to burn the world to the ground. Viv takes a breath. The anger in her voice. No, this isn't the same person that she knew. Viv knew she wouldn't entirely approve, but this, just because a messed up system destroys our home, does not give you the right or the authority to destroy and rebuild everything and everyone on this planet, Jazz continues. This is not the Viv that I know, and this is not the Viv that I fell in love with. And with that, in a fit of emotions, Viv grabs the remote to all of her speakers, motions for her people to run, and blasts each speaker at full volume. This has been Zero Sum Game, Episode 4, Sides. I would like to thank Ben Sounds and Adobe Stock for all of the music that you have heard in this episode. Join us next time when we get a special look into Viv's planning.